So basically, these complaints that I'm filing with the Vermont Judiciary, I have to go look and see what my options are for filing complaints against judges, which I'm going to make it an inquiry, not necessarily a complaint, and ask them to contact Judge Shafritz and the other judge about Autumn Caton's malicious restraining order that was retaliation for popping her and getting confessions out of her and many of her friends who were impersonating victims advocates for Sarah George's office and impersonating agents of Bernie Sanders and Mayor Mulvaney Stanik's staff, which is basically impersonating law enforcement on behalf of law enforcement, including Judge Hoar. The surveillance and security video at GMT captured Becky Burrell, Autumn's friend, and some lady friend of hers who stays in that Cambrian Way Liberty House, that big apartment complex there, dropping Judge Hoar's name too, and Weinberger's. They were basically trying to distance themselves from Judge Hoar by saying that he was allowing private investigators and snitches for Weinberger, who had stalked and harassed me, to file bogus restraining orders against them. They were making criminal allegations against Judge Hoar to make it look like they weren't working for him, and making legitimate, basically snitching out Judge Hoar and Weinberger and their idiotic PIs that they work with to make it look like they weren't part of it. And I said, well, why don't you go to Cousy? They're already under criminal investigation by Cousy. Oh, I'm friends with Sarah George. And then I don't know what her name was, but she's on a lot of video. The state police in Cousy and the sheriff's department in Hochul's independent investigation certainly knows who she is. And then she was running that little sham with Becky Burrell, I've got texts, and she's on plenty of security video and surveillance dropping Bernie Sanders' name. Then she's tried to associate herself with him multiple times. In fact, when they came down and served me the restraining order and the no trespass, after having lived in that park for 4 years, after them refusing to make proper referrals to domestic violence victims advocates and getting Cousy and the sheriff's department down there to investigate my murder and domestic violence trafficking by Epstein's cabal, which includes their defense attorney, who happens to be was my attorney, ex-boyfriend, and employer. They're saying, well, we're from the mayor's office. I'm like, okay. And then when I pushed back, well, it's the city attorney, Emmett Wood. That's the mayor's office. But that's not how they originally presented it. They were basically saying that the mayor just arbitrarily sent them down there. No, they went and lied to the mayor. After the arrest, I went down to the mayor's office, and I don't think it was a coincidence that she was coming out and was out there in the lobby on the 3rd floor at the exact time I'm getting off the elevator. So I was able to tell her what was going on. And I was so upset, but after I was able to cool down for a little while, I was finally figured out that what her and her staff needed me to do was contact McAfee, because they want McAfee dead to rights for refusing. McAfee knows that this is when police are involved in corruption, and evidence tampering, that there's some ultimately falsifying records systemically that is used by multiple judges and multiple courts, civil, criminal, probably work comp arbitrations, probably all kinds of different hearings and stuff, maybe domestic violence hearings, whatever. When you falsify one record, the whole clinic is suspect. Well, that goes for whether a medical clinic, a hospital, a rehab clinic, a behavioral clinic like Howard Center, or a homeless shelter that is partnered with any of them. I mean, it don't work unless they're all falsifying the records. And based on what I saw at Miller Center, that's exactly what they're doing. They're all, frat boy, sorority girl crap. So I'm guessing if you have any questions about who's stalking who, probably be a good idea to contact the state police. And, if I were a judge and I found out that somebody lied to me and came in and made a false criminal allegation about stalking from somebody who was actually doing the stalking on behalf of police and impersonating law enforcement, elected oversight law enforcement, like not impersonating a police officer like somebody who puts on a uniform and tries to write you a ticket or arrest you. They're impersonating, law enforcement in a different way to cover for corrupt law enforcement. I'd be pretty pissed as a judge. I'd be wanting them all in jail. Matter of fact, you're probably mandated by law as judges to do exactly that. So that's basically what I'm asking the Vermont Judiciary to do. Put this in front of you, and we're going to find out whether you're part of the problem or whether you're going to do, whether somebody ran a sham on your court and you're going to do what should be done and lock them up. And that goes for Emmett Wood as well, because he's involved in this too. If he's a city prosecutor and some park ranger lied to him and a bunch of cops lied to him, he's supposed to lock him up. And I'm guessing that is the state police jurisdiction, because apparently here in Vermont, the state police can elect an elected official. And you have a whole lot of people involved that are either police or their government oversight or even elected to a city council or state reps or senators or whatever. Then I'm not talking about Becca Ballant or Bernie Sanders or former Rep. Mulvaney Stanek. I'm talking about establishment Democrats. Peter Welch is implicated. So is Patrick Leahy. And some other ones that said a lot of, basically admitted to misappropriation of funds during the COVID mess. So that's basically, they want me pushing buttons and asking for help. And this is your opportunity to either assist the state police and Hochul's independent investigation in Cousy and the sheriff's department, who already know who's who. When I spoke with the lieutenant, I said, people are following me on behalf of the mayor at the time was Weinberger and police. And he said, Joseph, Jerry, what's the other guy's name? Salinas, little Italian. He started naming names. He already knew who they were. One of which came to my previous camp and jerked off around my tent on a regular basis after dark, and would often come down there with a ball cap on, and because he couldn't turn on a light lest I would notice he was there, branches would knock his hat off, and then because he couldn't turn on a light lest I find out he's there right away, because it was a very dark woodland, and if there's a light on, I'm going to see it. So he had to just leave his hat there. 2 of them did that crap. One of them came in and ripped up my tent, sliced it up with the knife, and then tried to make it look like raccoons do it. Raccoons, they don't know what they need to do, so you see all kinds of cute little paw scratches around it, and then eventually one of the claws gets in and digs. That's not what these were. These went sideways. And they were really too high. And the raccoons go for a strategic area. Like when they tried to get into my tent before, it was right where the cooler was that had food in it. They did it at my tent at my latest camp that they just did a bogus no trespassing on. They always went right where the dog food was in a 5-gallon bucket. They didn't go around the whole tent and just arbitrarily start ripping holes. And when I posted the picture of the guy's hat and text where he's offering to give it to me, because I complimented him on it, I said, hey, well, it was a Columbia hat. And he says, oh, I'll trade you the hat for a power bank. And he put it in a text and described it. So I posted the picture of his hat that he accidentally lost while he was ripping up my tent, and the text where he's trying to trade it to me. And they did the same thing again. Escalated their violence, and I had them all over me, screwing with me, threatening me. This is what it's called, narcissistic rage. Nobody makes more allegations than child molesting drug traffickers and child traffickers and rapists accused of something they absolutely did. So I kind of acted like I wasn't going to screw with these complaints against Vermont Judiciary or the restraining order against Judge Hoar and all these idiotic PIs that they still have all over me. And that I would just get on a bus to Georgia, and I cussed out the mayor and basically everybody at the independent investigation, all theatrics, good cop, bad cop crap, PSYOP, and basically got them all to confess. Yeah, we're murdering you to get to your dad. Yeah, we'll get you on a bus so you can go tell your dad all about it. Knowing I probably wouldn't live past, as soon as I crossed state line, they would probably put a bullet in my head or arrest me, or there's no way they're going to let me get down to Georgia, where I've already reported all this to the Fannin County Sheriff, who took a very good report. I mean, he handled that call really well, considering the stuff I was saying. But I'm pretty sure he's probably already involved. If my dad's got people up here, and it sure looks like they're running their investigation the way he would, including pushing me to be as prodigious as possible, I'm sure they're probably already involved. Which brings me to another point. Just because Vermont woke boneheads think it's okay for somebody to say, ooh, I'm scared to put a restraining order against somebody and demand that they stay 300 feet away, but then the person making the accusation can get right up on the person, clearly not afraid, and arrogantly flaunt their abuse of power in the victim's face. That's not going to fly in Georgia. Because, see, Autumn, Kate, and Becky Burrell and all these people just confessed inadvertently to trying to murder my father in Florida, and take all their grandkids away because they're accusing him of sex trafficking, child porn, and drug trafficking as a military investigator, but albeit in civilian court via subtext, through my medical records, falsified medical records, to justify killing him and then taking making false criminal allegations against the rest of the family as enablers, which is what they're accusing me of doing. They're accusing me of being part of his sex trafficking operation. Never mind. They're broke. He can absolutely file charges down there. The Fannin County Sheriff can absolutely file charges down there and haul Autumn Caton's butt down there. And they're absolutely going to look at that idiotic, malicious restraining order that says I'm to stay 300 feet, no less than 300 feet away from her. And then she's on video violating it herself,